Welcome to the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share a conversation with a student in our full-time MBA class of 2026, Yatta Ackom. Yatta and I recently connected to talk more about her decision to pursue an MBA, what led her to Darden, her experience adjusting to school in her first year here at the Darden School of Business, what clubs and organizations she's going to be involved with as she turns her attention to her second year, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. As always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the Experience Darden podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Yatta Ackom. Yatta, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. How is everything? How are you doing?
It's okay, I'm good. I'm happy that we're done with classes for now. I guess initially I wasn't sure, but it's kind of like first year just flew by, but it's nice to just have, I guess, some time to not have anything tied to that you have to do and then trying to figure things out. So for the summer.
Yeah, first year is a really busy year, I know. So a little downtime, I'm sure, is welcome. So, well, before we get much further into the conversation, tell us a little bit more about who you are and what's your background.
Sure. So I'm Yatta. So I grew up primarily between England and Sierra Leone, and then I spent the last couple of years before Darden living in Ghana. So I'm half Sierra Leone, half Ghanaian. And then I like to say I have three homes. So England, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. But I worked mainly within the advertising and media space. So I was producing adverts and working on film campaigns initially. So that was for brands like Disney and NBC Universal. And then I moved more into the CPG side of things. So I had a lot of brands under the Nestle umbrella. I've also done some project management and media strategy as well.
Had you thought about an MBA for a long time?
Yeah, so in my family, education is a big thing. I think a lot of Africans are like that as well. So I always knew I did my undergrad in industrial product design. So I was always a science and engineering student. And then I felt that when I was graduating, I wanted to do my master's in business. And then I was speaking to my mom, and she was like, you might as well do an MBA. And so in my mind, since I graduated, it's always been in my mind that I would do an MBA. And then I don't know. I kind of went off it. Like when you start working, you're just like, oh no, I'm working now. Oh, I don't know if I want to take time off. And I kind of delayed it a bit, but I think it's all worked out well in terms of timing. I think at this point in my life, like I've done quite a bit. I know who I am more and kind of where I want to go, what I want to get from it. Whilst I feel that if you were younger and you did it, um, maybe not so much, but that's not to say that you can't. Like we have a lot of ranges in our class, but I personally see value in waiting a bit. Because especially at that time, some people in my family wanted me to do it straight away. It was more the women in my family. But then my dad was like, no, masters are for people like when you wait and you figure out what you want to do, you work a bit and understand yourself a bit more and then go in. And I think that's actually been good advice.
Yeah. How did you figure out that timing? Obviously, waiting and sort of getting a better sense of what you'd like to do is important, but that can be a very long period of time. It can be a shorter period of time. How'd you figure out when was the right time for you to pursue your MBA?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because so I moved straight after university and then I went back to England and then I went back to Ghana again. Um, but this time I think it was more of thinking about what do I want to do long term, who do I want to be, and where do I want to go, and realizing that I might just have to go back to school in order to get the experience I want to do, but also time is going and I don't want to leave it a bit later because I think the more you leave it, the harder it is to go back to school. And I wanted to do a full-time program. I don't want to do an EMBA or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong. I just want to immerse myself into school. And so I felt that it just felt like the right time. It felt like I needed it in order to progress to the next stages of my career. Also, long term, I want to own my own startup within the tech space, and I wanted to pivot into technology. So for me, it made sense. But also, I think just the experience alone, because for me, it's not just about pivoting. It's like I said, I always wanted to do an MBA. It felt like it was time to do my master's, but what you can get from the program, which is why I focused on America rather than doing it somewhere else.
How did you get interested in Darden specifically?
I think when you're starting to figure out where you want to do your MBA and just researching, you sign up to a lot of different places. So I don't know if it was a platform or it was an educational site or it was an exam prep site. But through that, I don't know how I got connected to Darden. I saw an email from the University of Virginia, and I kept seeing it, and I just decided to look, and I realized it was in the top 20 or top 15. Um, and then I joined the call one day and I liked it. I liked the vibe that I got from admissions. I remember I spoke to someone in admissions. She was on the call, and then I spoke to a student, and he was also international. He had come from, I think, Italy or Spain. He had come from somewhere in Europe, and so it was just nice to speak to somebody that was international as well at that time. And I liked the vibe that I got. I liked how they were helpful, and through them, I was able to speak to different people. I spoke to a lot of people that were from Ghana as well, that were currently in the school at that time, and it was, um, I just felt a genuine sense of kindness and openness, but also support. It's quite weird because you're not in the school, but it did feel like support. They were ready to talk to you. They were ready to help you with anything you needed to do, whether it was essays, whether it was resume, or just talking about the experience, which I thought was nice.
How did you think about moving and relocating to the US and specifically Charlottesville?
So I think I'd always wanted to come and do schooling here at some point or live here at some point. And it's interesting because a lot of people in my family tell me to this day, they're like, oh, you're finally living in America or you're finally going to school in America. So it's something that I didn't realize I'd always wanted. But when I think back about it, I did want to do my undergrad here. But my mom felt like it would be easier at the time to just, because I was living in Sierra Leone, and to move back to England and just do my undergrad in England. Um, but for me, I felt when you look at an MBA program, I feel that you get more value when you do it in America. I think this is where MBA started. I think the programs are a bit more fully fleshed out. I also feel like there's a sense of pride that you don't necessarily get in maybe a school in the UK. That strong alumni network. I think Americans are very proud of their schools. Like everything is centered around the schools. Like even in Charlottesville, I feel like everything is centered around UVA. You don't really get that in England, really. So I felt that I would have been a program that was fully fleshed out, a lot more networking opportunities in terms of like alumni, a lot of people coming here as well from different places. Um, and yeah, so for me, that was more of a driving force.
So what was the experience like adjusting to being in an MBA program? Obviously, that was something you'd want to do for a long time, and here you were. But it's a new environment and Darden's case method, and so what was that? What was the experience like?
It was very intense, I would say. So I came for ISOP, so the International Orientation Program, and then I did DBD, so Darden before Darden, and then I did launch week and then Q1. So it was back to back for me and it was a lot. And Q1, I always say that I feel like I was being pulled in so many different directions. Um, so it was very intense, I would say, but it gets easier, or you feel like you get easier, it gets easier. But every quarter gets easier, but you feel like you're experiencing something different. Like for me, for example, so Q1 it was just an adjustment. And like I mentioned, it was back to back of different programs before that. But it was an adjustment in terms of case method, particularly because I don't think I've done case method before. And I think sometimes as well you can feel a lot of imposter syndrome, like you're in a room with different people who have different experiences, but just being able to just speak up. And half of the time as well, you would find yourself, the professor would ask something and then somebody would answer, and I was like, I don't think that was the question. But I think it's because people just want to speak. But I think initially it's a lot because you're kind of focused on participation. I have to participate, but then you get into a sort of groove where it's like, okay, where do I want to participate? Or you realize that, okay, I have a specific skill set or a specific background that you can contribute more. And so you don't need to feel that sort of pressure. And I think initially, like a lot of us felt maybe imposter syndrome or pressure to just speak. I think as well, my background is my background professionally is non-traditional. So I worked in advertising and media. I did production, I did strategy. Um, it's not what you would think, I guess, when you're with people who are doing finance or consulting. Etc. So there was also that, like I'm doing a lot of, I wasn't a business student, I was an engineering student. And so a lot of the things that I am learning are quite new. Like never done an economics class. I've never done anything to do with decision analysis, anything to do with finance. I think I did accounting briefly in secondary school in Sierra Leone. So it was all new to me, but I think as well you need to remember that sometimes you're with people who have done these things every single day of their lives, so you can't sort of compare yourselves to them. Um, I will also say there was also something else that came to mind. Yeah, having that sort of engineering or science background, you're used to absolute answers. So you have a formula, it gets you to the right place. If you can kind of tell when you don't have a right answer and you can backtrack. I think the case method is a bit of an adjustment, especially with that sort of background, because everybody can have their own way of doing something. There's not necessarily a one right answer, especially in topics that you think there is. So I remember managerial accounting and then finance. It was confusing to me because it's like, what is the right answer? But then like, there's no right answer. And how this person did it is correct, and how this person did it correct. Well, it's up to you. It's up to what do you think? So that was also another layer to the adjustment for me. But I think it's helped in ways where you don't have to know every single thing. I am that kind of person that I want to dissect something. I want to know all the pros and cons and break it down. But it's kind of taught you that, okay, with this little information that you have, what can you synthesize from it and what can you say and be able to talk about it confidently? So yeah, I did see a transition between like Q1 to Q3 or Q4. But yeah, it was an adjustment. I think also another thing is time. You need to really learn how to prioritize your time. I don't know if I've got that down packed yet. But it's yeah, because not only are you juggling academics, you're juggling new relationships, you're juggling different events and programming, you're juggling recruiting as well. And it's just a lot. I think there's always something to do in Darden. And then another thing is there's always events or things that you might be interested in that clash. So it's like, which one would you go to this time versus the next time? Um, so yeah, it's been a lot of an adjustment, but I think in a good way. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can see how it's giving me skills that you don't consciously, I guess, know that you're learning. But I think looking back, you'll be like, okay, I'm more confident to just go with things now or to speak about things, or I can talk about finance, whereas before I couldn't, or I know how to sort of prioritize my time, or I know how to network more, or different things. So it's good. Hard skills and soft skills.
Yeah, that right answer orientation, expecting there to be one right answer, that's a big change for, I think, a lot of students at Darden,
Yeah.
because you come out of an undergraduate experience or maybe a master's experience where there is really a right answer, and the faculty member is going to tell you this is the answer, and that's just not what the faculty do at Darden. They're trying to get you comfortable with exercising judgment and making decisions, and there could be a number of right answers depending on how you think through things. And it's just different.
Yeah, it is very different. It's interesting as well because I thought it's different to what I thought as well. So I mentioned I did my secondary school in Sierra Leone, and there was a lot of, I would say, kind of rote learning, like what the teacher says is correct, and you have to kind of like regurgitate that. And I think it's good to an extent because you end up having a lot of knowledge about things. But then I struggled when I went to England for sixth form, and then it was a lot of things were up to me. Like I had to choose what experiment did I want to focus on, what did I want to do.
What section were you in for your first year?
Section D, so the Dragons, and we are the current Darden champions, Darden Cup champions.
What was your favorite thing about Section D?
Honestly, I feel like Section D were just quite chilled. I don't I don't think we have too much drama. I don't think that we like we're just we're not the loudest. We have our own kind of fun as well. I think it didn't feel as well like you would hear some other sections are quite competitive. I don't think we had that. It was just more, we're just quite chilled, just trying to understand what we're here for, what are we trying to do, how can we be here for each other if we want to, and yeah, it was a good section. But yeah, and we came through in the Darden Cup, which was good as well. So that was fun.
Are you surprised that y'all won Darden Cup, given that y'all are so laid back, it sounds like?
No, okay, I'm not surprised because we were winning for a while. I don't want to say laid back in terms of like, oh, we don't do anything. I think we're just not competitive in terms of like what I would hear with other sections. I think it's just more about for us, it's like having a good time while you're doing anything. Um, Yeah, we might have a bit of competitive spirit, I think, when it comes to Darden Cup. So that definitely. But I think just in the general everyday life, it's been I would say, a sort of calm place. And I think how can you support each other or how do you show up for different things and just trying to form, I guess, genuine connections and genuine bonds, which was nice.
How did your career goals evolve over the course of your first year? Obviously, your career considerations were a big part of what motivated you to pursue an MBA in the first place. Did they change in any way?
For me, it's not changed. So it's been prior to school, I wanted to be recruiting for technology, and I still am. Recruiting for tech. I would say maybe it's changed in terms of roles. So initially, I was looking at product management roles, which I still kind of am, but it's evolved a bit to more strategy roles and product marketing, and that aligns with my background before business school. Um, so yeah, it's still been tech for me. I um yeah, it's not changed that much.
What's interesting to you about tech?
I think when you look at the world and where we're going, everything is centered around tech. I think across industries, tech is being enabled to make things easier, make things more efficient, make it have a wider reach. And when I was thinking about coming to business school, more seriously or more active about pursuing it, I knew that I wanted to be in a position where I could have more impact on development, especially where I was. So I was working, it's for a multinational company. So I was working for Publicis, but in the West African headquarters, which is in Ghana. And so my role covered the Central and West African region. So we were covering around 22 countries. But it's for me, just working in that region and in roles before that, there's a lot of technological infrastructure gap. And I think just looking at me and looking at how I've always wanted to level the playing field, that's always been a thing for me. I've always wanted to be part of helping Africa in terms of development. And so when I look around and think about, okay, what can I do? I think it was all pointing me to the tech field or the tech industry. Um, and yeah, so for me, it's important for me to be in that space. I also do find it interesting as well, just in how applicable it is across industries and the different things that people are doing. But when you think about creation, when you think about innovation, when you think about development, I think it all centers to tech, and that's essentially what drove me towards it, and that's why I want to be in that space.
As you look ahead to your second year is oftentimes a time in Darden student life and journey when people get more involved as a leader of a club or organization. Are you involved with any clubs or organizations as a leader?
Yeah, so I'm actually on two boards. So I am serving as the EVP, so that's the Executive Vice President of DABO, which is the Darden African Business Organization. And then I'm also on GWIB, which is the Graduate Women in Business organization, as the VP of Admissions.
And how did you decide that you wanted to get involved with those two organizations in a leadership capacity?
So I think for me, I think when I was looking at my year, I knew that, okay, I think I wanted to be across two boards. And for me, I had to do things that sort of align with me or who I am or passion or vision. So being on the Darbo board was a no-brainer for me. I think initially as well, before coming to school, they were very instrumental in my transition here. So whether it was visa applications, whether it was moving, whether it was understanding, because there's a lot of different, it's a different journey coming from back home, coming from the continent to here. Um, and a lot of different things that we had to think about or put in place and prepare for earlier on. So Dabo was very instrumental initially, and I wanted to sort of give that back as well. But I think as well, it's good to have that community here, and I wanted to sort of um help improve how instrumental we can be as well on grounds. Not improve, sorry, add to how instrumental we can be on grounds to people who are coming in, and just sort of strengthen that community and strengthen that bond that we have. And it's been yeah, it's nice being able to sort of serve that. I say it's like a labor of love. And then with Gwib, obviously it's a good thing to serve for anything. Like I mentioned, I want to be able to, I've always been about leveling the playing field for different communities that I'm identified with or not. But with just being in a position where I could serve women or the women community here, that was important to me. And I would say admissions because before coming to school, I really wanted to help with admissions in any way that I could, whether it was just helping people in terms of their application journey. So the sort of help and the support that I received, I wanted to get that back. But I also wanted to be able to help in terms of, I don't know if it's, I don't want to say curating per se or like attracting a more diverse class as well. So that was important to me. And I think admissions is nice because you get to interact with a lot of different students. You get to work closely with admissions and see how they're sort of curating the class and just helping people make that decision because it's a big decision and it it's a lot that goes into it. So any way that I could be of help was important to me. So yeah, that's how I ended up on those two boards. And I'm excited for the year ahead and the different initiatives or the different events that we'll be doing and just being in a place where you can help make people's transition to Darden easier or better. That's always good.
What else are you excited about when you think about your second year?
More time. I would definitely say more free time. Not free in a sense. I know it's going to be busy and I know there's going to be a lot to do, but core was a lot. Core is very structured. You're doing classes that you don't necessarily want to do. Although you can see the benefit in hindsight, maybe. Um, and I think it's nice as well because you have to do those classes. Everybody's doing those classes. You're in the same section. I think it helps in terms of bonding as well and just understanding or setting up that foundation for business school. But I think a highlight for me for second year is definitely having more time to curate how I want to spend it. So what classes do I want to do? This class is of interest to me, or this class will help me in my career, and choosing that. Um, Also getting to do a lot more leadership electives. I think for me, I like those classes, or being in an elective that you might not have the chance to do before. So like the interviewing elective as well. Um, yeah, so I'm looking forward to that and being able to explore Charlottesville more. I think with core I wasn't able to, but also explore America more. There's so many different states. Every state has a different vibe. So yeah, I would say that's what I'm looking forward to in second year.
How are you thinking about the electives that you're taking? You mentioned, obviously, it sounds like it's nice to have some choice, get to pick your classes. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you say that because I still have to submit my my biddings, and I was working on that before this call. Um, so I'm thinking of it through where I want to be again. So looking at electives that serve as the in the specialization that I want to do, and also that serve tech or serve general management, and blending that together. So that's how I'm looking at it, but also I'm looking at it as what am I interested in, or what do I want to gain? So if it's the course that maybe works on a platform that is quite helpful, so maybe it's like Python or SQL or something, then kind of prioritizing that because that would help. And I think when it comes to leadership courses, I really like those courses. I think a lot more people need to take it, and a lot more people need to take it seriously. But I think it's good in terms of how, like, the dynamics that you have with people, how it is in the workplace, how do you sort of influence, how do you build rapport, how do you build a strong team? So I think those ones are important as well. Um, yeah, that's sort of how I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it in terms of career, like what would help me and what would be advantageous, but then also what do I want to do, or how do I want to be as a person?
Well, Yatta, one more question for you, and thank you so much for everything you shared here and for sharing your story with our prospective student listeners. What's a piece of advice you would share with them as they think about their own MBA journeys?
I would say like to remember who you are. And I know it can kind of sound a bit cliche, but I think what I mean by that is I think focus on understanding who you are, first of all. So I think that that work needs to be done before, like who are you as a person? But also in terms of career, where do you want to go? Why do you want to do it? So what's like your purpose? And I then think that would help in serving you to remember who you are when you're here. Because there's a lot of moving parts. You're going to be dragged in different directions, and you're going to feel different things. You might feel imposter syndrome, or you might feel like, oh my God, this is too hard, or why did I come here? But I think when you remember who you are and why you're doing certain things, then I think that would help you to move forward. I think it would also help you to move forward with focus, so you're not distracted by other people and what's going on around you. Um, and yeah, I think it can also kind of help you during the ebbs and flows. So like, or like during the ups and downs of the course. And that's one thing that I've gotten as like feedback as well about myself, is that I've been authentic. So it's nice to know that I'm authentic to who I am in any environment that I'm in. Because you just have to live your life for yourself, but eh, yeah, just be grounded in who you are. Um, and I think that would always be a strong foundation.
I think that's great advice. I mean, we really encourage prospective students to approach the application process, really being who they are and lean into that. I think sometimes people feel like they've got to be some other version of themselves to kind of get through the application, et cetera. But no, we really want to get to know the real you. So I think that's great advice. So thank you again for your time today. It was great talking with you.
Thank you. It was great talking to you too, and thanks for having me.
And that was my conversation with Yatta Ackom, a student in our full-time MBA class of 2026. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's Darden, @virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.